right, we're going to kick off our first scientific session of the day, and that is titled Addressing Last Mile Food Safety Concerns as Consumers Adopt E-Commerce and Delivery. I look forward to the presentations by today's speakers, who will discuss some of the food safety concerns that are unique to these situations, and who will highlight the need for new measures to ensure products are safe through that last mile of delivery to the consumer. It's my pleasure to introduce the session's moderator, Dr. Don Schaffner. Don is an extension specialist in food science and distinguished professor at Rutgers University, and his research interests include hand washing, cross-contamination, predictive food microbiology, and quantitative microbial risk assessment. He's a fellow of IFT, the American Academy of Microbiology, and IAFP. Don is a current member of the IFIN's Board of Trustees, and in his spare time, he co-hosts the Food Safety Talk and Risky or Not podcasts. So Don, thank you for moderating, and welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Brianna. It's a pleasure to be here. So in this session, we are going to hear three different perspectives on the last mile food safety issue. We'll see some data on the safety of meat products ordered online and shipped by common carrier from Bill Holman. We'll learn about non-traditional food facilities and some food safety concerns that exist in those environments from Jorge Hernandez. And then finally, discuss how technological approaches can be used to improve food safety with Liz Duffy. There will be time for Q&A following each presentation, so please do speak up if you're here in the room, or if you're online, please do submit your questions via the questions box. With that, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, Bill Holman. Bill is a professor and chair of the Department of Human Ecology at Rutgers University. His research focuses on consumer perceptions of risk and communications relating to food, particularly how they relate to new food technologies, including biotechnology, gene editing, nanotechnology, animal cloning, and cell-based meat, poultry, and seafood. And in fact, today, Bill is going to be talking about another one of his research interests, the safety of meat, poultry, and fish ordered over the internet and shipped by common carrier. Bill. Here's your clicker.
Thanks very much. And you're going to help me keep on time.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So thanks very much for the introduction. I am Bill Holman, professor and chair of the Department of Human Ecology at Rutgers University. Human Ecology at Rutgers is a social science department focused on environmental issues rather than the home economics kind of things that are at other universities. So in a nutrition food safety conference, I kind of need to clarify that. So I'm going to talk about a project. There we go. Oh, I guess I need to do my disclosures, my conflicts of interests. I am currently, as of today, employed by Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey. I have grant support from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Johnson & Johnson, and the New Jersey Agricultural Experiment Station. I serve on several committees of the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. I work on a working group that is trying to modernize recalls with colleagues at Stop Foodborne Illness. I'm the U.S. delegate nominated by the State Department to the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Food Safety Cooperation Forum. Say that 10 times fast. I serve on the executive committee of the New Brunswick Community Farmers Market, which serves food insecure people in New Brunswick, which I started in 2009, and on the executive committee again of Rutgers Against Hunger, which is a food insecurity organization, which I founded in 2008. Okay, let's get to whoops, here we go. Oh, there is feedback. Yeah, if we wouldn't mind. All right, so the material that I'm going to talk about today was supported by the U.S. Department of Agriculture in a grant called Food Safety Risk Factors and Educational Strategies for Consumers Purchasing Seafood and Meat Products Online. So this is with my colleagues Don Schaffner and Angela Sanger-Mersich at Rutgers University, and Sandria Godwin, Furchi Chen, and Richard Stone at Tennessee State University. So thanks to the USDA, ladies and gentlemen, these are your tax dollars at work. So I want to talk about the market very, very quickly. And what I want to emphasize here is that there are a lot of people who are buying these products online for a lot of different reasons. Fundamentally, the first one is convenience. It gives you the ability to buy things that you can't find locally. These products are used as both personal and corporate gifts. And in fact, one of the reasons I got into this was because somebody sent me a corporate gift that arrived on a Friday, and I was not there on that Friday. And by the time I got to the office on Tuesday, it had all been spoiled. So there you go. So this collaboration between Rutgers and Tennessee State was lengthy. I don't have an opportunity to talk about all of the pieces of this, but I will mention the highlights of the survey of 1,000 consumers. We looked at food safety information on the websites of 427 of these websites and looked at their delivery policies. We measured delivery and food safety parameters of 169 shipments of these items, looked at 684 products for the presence of indicator organisms and specific pathogens, looked at the food safety information that came along with the boxes, and we have some recommendations for both consumers and industry on how to fix this. So there are indeed hundreds of vendors, more than 500 vendors when we first began to look at this, who are offering perishable raw meat, poultry, game, and seafood products with direct delivery to consumers using FedEx, UPS, and yes, indeed, the US Postal Service. What I want to emphasize are three things. First of all, there are very few barriers to entry into this market. You can come and go without a trace. All you need is a website, fundamentally. Vendors are located across the country, literally, and they ship across the country, literally. There is no central list of vendors nor nationwide regulatory oversight. In order to find the more than 500 vendors, I had to sit and watch football and do lots of Google searches, and it was easy to find them. In our consumer survey of 1,002 adult consumers, we did this in 2013, we found that 1 in 10 Americans was in the market at that point. Post-COVID, it's got to be way more than that. I just don't have the empirical data. And if USDA would like us to repeat this, I'd be more than happy to have that data. 52% purchased products for themselves. Another 46% had received one of these products as a gift within the previous 12 months, and about a quarter had purchased products for somebody else. The key survey findings I want you to take home: consumers perceive very little risk associated with these products. 95% told us that they believe that receiving fresh or frozen products delivered by one of these services is safe. 84% were satisfied with the quality of the products they received, and 88% would order from the same company again. You're about to see why they are mistaken. The fundamental problem is that parcels containing perishable foods aren't treated any differently than any other package handled by FedEx, UPS, and US Postal Service. And so because of that, the packages have to maintain proper cold temperatures on their own during delivery. FedEx does not have refrigerated trucks. And I participated as one of the recipients of these packages in the study. And literally a package or two of fresh perishable proteins would be delivered alongside with a Dell computer and a book from Amazon. All same shipment. One key thing is the policy of signature release, which is the opposite of what you think it means. It means you can drop the package off without a signature. Packages may be left at an exterior door at the whim of the delivery driver. The problem with this is that only 5 of the 427 vendors we looked at specifically required a signature upon delivery. That is, you had to sign for the package. Everybody else was delivering signature release. That is, just leaving it outside an exterior door. And of course, the problem with that is if you leave the package out there, they can be subject to temperature abuse. The other issue is that only about a quarter of the vendors explicitly said to the people purchasing the products that in fact they would be left at an exterior door. They would be delivered signature release. Now, to compound this, both FedEx and UPS disclaim responsibility if the perishable products become spoiled or damaged during the delivery process. They say it's the vendor's responsibility to ensure that their perishable goods reach their consumers safely. However, the vendors themselves often disclaim responsibility. And they make it really difficult for consumers to report problems or to receive refunds. Most of these websites didn't have numbers you could call in order to contact anybody. It was all, through the internet. And if somebody asks me a good question later, I'll tell you my personal story about an issue with a package that came from Vermont. So there are real questions of liability here. The vendors are generally shifting responsibility to consumers. Here are some examples of some of the specific disclaimers on websites, including Cape Porpoise Lobster Company saying they're not responsible for the misuse, accidental breakage of products, or product that's left outside in adverse weather conditions. If no one is there to receive the order, the driver will leave the order at the door. This signifies acceptance of the order, the same as a signature. You will be responsible for full payment of the order, and so on. Fundamentally, Exotic Meats just says no refunds, which kind of gets to the point. We looked at food safety information on the websites. We found that only about 40% provided any food safety information whatsoever on their websites. Those that did provide any food safety information regarding handling, refrigeration, those sorts of things, it was extraordinarily difficult to find. Often under weird tabs like shipping, recipes, about us, seafood facts, and the bizarre, they've arrived. It is possible, however, to do this properly. We did find some websites that did this well, specifically showed cooking guides, cooking temperature charts, refrigeration. So this is an example of one of those. Now, examples of really bad and inaccurate food safety advice were plentiful. This is one from Pheasant for Dinner. If you need to defrost it quickly, we recommend submerging the bird in a tub of hot water. Incorrect. Lobels of New York. All meat must be at room temperature before cooking, about 4 hours before cooking time. Put the chops on the kitchen counter to finish thawing and reach room temperature. Again, incorrect. We saw a lot of misinformation related to grass-fed beef. Here's one from Rocky Mountain Organic Meat. Because it comes from cows not raised in food lots, the likelihood of E. coli contamination is extremely low. It's much safer to eat rare than conventional beef. Incorrect. However, I think that the worst advice that we saw over and over and over again was advice about cool to the touch. So here's gunpowder bison. Your bison meat may be thawed by the time it gets to you. Touch the meat, and if it is cool to the touch, your order is in good condition. But wait, there's more. Exotic Meats. Yes, it is safe to eat the meats as long as it is cool to the touch, according to USDA standards. Do we have anybody from USDA who can? Yeah. We should probably talk about that. So clearly, that is not USDA standards. And frankly, cool to the touch is not a temperature. It is relative to the ambient temperature in the room. So literally, we got products that were 67 degrees, and they felt cool to the touch, but they were not safe to eat. So we ordered 160 of these from 160 companies, shipped half of them to Tennessee State, half of them to Rutgers. We had an elaborate unboxing process. We took pictures of everything, weighed everything, took surface temperatures in 10 different places, took samples, shipped them off to Don's lab, to Furchi Chen's lab, and looked for the presence of indicator organisms and specific pathogens. Just to keep us all straight, we had a portal that we entered all of the information into. So a lot more information than I can possibly talk about today. I just want to give you a sense that as an experimental psychologist, I tend to be detail oriented. So this is what we did. So again, we ordered from 160 of these purveyors, 271 meat, 39 poultry, 133 game, 235 seafood, 6 other products. They were shipped literally from across the country. About 60% were delivered via FedEx, about 4 in 10 by UPS, 1% by United States Postal Service, and that one was really problematic. About 3/4 were shipped frozen, which was a very good idea. The frozen products tended to come in better condition than those transported fresh. We looked at the food safety information on the outside of the boxes. Only about 1/3 had any food safety information on the outside of the box. Only 1/4 had any food safety information inside the package. Almost all of them had a catalog to allow you to purchase more products. Like their websites, a great deal of this food safety information was incorrect, including incorrect cooking temperature instructions, storage times, storage instructions, thawing instructions, and so forth. Now, one of the reasons that I think that consumers think that the products that they are getting are fine is that we found very little exterior damage, any visible damage to either the products or the packaging. Almost all the packages arrived intact. The inside of the packages, most of them were perfectly fine. We only saw 6 packages with any sign of leakage. I happen to remember the one on the bottom right because I was wearing a white shirt. We looked at dunnage, and dunnage is the packaging material that's inside the box, and it's important for 2 reasons. One is it keeps the meats and poultry from banging around inside the box when it's being shipped, but it also takes up airspace. So it makes it easier to keep the products cold, particularly if you're using a gel pack, which you want to keep in contact with the product itself. We found huge problems with dunnage. 63% of the packages had no dunnage whatsoever. And even when there was dunnage, many of the containers were way too large for their contents. This is a package that I opened. It is very expensive duck breast with a gel pack. That's it. We looked at coolants. The majority actually contain gel packs, which is a good thing. We found that gel packs actually, 56% contain gel packs, 42% contain dry ice. The dry ice worked better than the gel packs. The problem with the dry ice is that fewer than half of the packages with dry ice had any label indicating that there was dry ice in the package, which is problematic. Now, we looked at delivery temperatures in 10 different places, north, south, east, and west on the top, same on the bottom. The average arrival temperatures ranged from -23, where there was dry ice up against the product, to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. The surface temperatures varied really significantly among products in the same shipment, depending on where they were in relationship to the coolant, but even at different locations on the same product, again, depending on where they were in relationship to the gel packs or to the dry ice. Here's the bottom line. Nearly half of the products that we accepted arrived with 1 or more surface temperatures above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, the majority contained gel packs. That was a bad idea because gel packs did not perform as well as the dry ice. The total plate counts appeared to typical plate counts appeared to be about 5 log CFUs per gram. Some foods had no detectable bacteria. Some foods had very high total plate counts. And we have how long the products were in transit, their arrival temperatures, and so there are some correlations that you might expect there, but surprisingly, not always. So some of the products that had been in transit the longest and had been shipped frozen with dry ice arrived perfectly fine. Others that were shipped fresh with gel packs overnight were not so good. We found other problems beside temperatures. I'm not sure whether you can actually see this on the screen or not, but this is the bottom of a box with pieces of nuts and what looks to be a yellow stain in the box itself, which suggests rodent infestation, obviously. We found crushed dry ice, which I had no idea existed, with no dry ice label. We found plenty of unlabeled products. This is ground something, and 5 different kinds of fish, again, not labeled, just in plastic bags. Some potentially mislabeled products. This was shipped to us as filet mignon. I don't think so. I think there is meat glue associated with this, and you can see there's a little pepper seed in the lower right-hand corner. So again, suggesting some cross-contamination issues. So here's the bottom line. Almost all of the packages arrived intact. So there are very few visible indicators of potential food safety problems. But about half of the products arrived with a surface temperature above 40 degrees, so should not be considered safe to consume. So that, combined with a lack of food safety information, a lot of nonsense when it comes to food safety information, on the vendor websites and in the packages and on the packages, combined with consumer confidence that what they're getting is safe, and barriers to report any problems and receive refunds, puts consumers at an increased risk for foodborne illness. And so that's what I want to leave with you this morning. And I think I'm on time, Don. All right. So if you have questions, I'd be very, very happy to answer them. There's a lot more here.
Our final speaker in this session is Liz Duffy. Liz is the Senior Director of Global Omnichannel Compliance at Walmart. In this role, Liz leads the development and implementation of compliance controls for global omnichannel, boy, that's a hard one to say, global omnichannel compliance programs such as last mile delivery, grocery pickup, ship from store, etc. Liz focuses on leveraging compliance to enable and grow the business to take care of customers. As our third and final speaker in this session, Liz is going to be talking about her perspectives on technology, a technology-first approach for ensuring food safety. Liz?
Yeah, thank you. Two very hard presentations to follow. They're both fantastic, but definitely thankful for the opportunity to get up here and present. So as Dr. Shafter said, I'm Liz Duffy. I've had the chance to work with Walmart for about 16 years now and really been able to spend a lot of time in the last 7 or 8 in this omni-channel space. So when you think about the evolution of shopping history, a long time ago, we all went to the grocery store. Sometimes we had something delivered. I remember looking at the Sears catalog or Kmart catalog back in the day, or having something delivered, but really have evolved to a truly omni experience where our customers are omni-channel customers. Our retailers need to be omni retailers. If you want something now, if you want it tomorrow, if you wanted it yesterday, they're shopping in an omni manner. And so as we think about how science has evolved, science has really powered us to be an omni type of environment, an omni type of experience. I'm definitely not a scientific expert by any means, but the thing I do love about science is it gets us to yes. And so as I have some of our business stakeholders coming to me routinely, well, what about this? What if we tie it to a dog and send it down the, just different things of that nature. It's not my job to tell them no. It's my job to look at the science and the data and figure out how to get them to yes. Now, there are some things that are there's a hard no. So I don't want to, nothing with the dog. But that's nothing with the dog at this point too. But there are a lot of creative types of users out there. I think all of us have come across this kind of new generation of software technology, social media. And so if the idea could be thought, it's being thought. And so for us, it's once again going back to those kind of core foundational principles of what are the risks? How do we look at the science associated with those risks to be able to solve for that kind of consideration or that new part of the future? So a couple things too. I know Jorge keyed in on this too, but looking at kind of the last mile experience, one thing I want to call out in this, thinking about this morning, going to get breakfast, there was this beautiful spread of kind of a complimentary buffet, depending on where you were staying. I was like, gosh, it'd be so great if I could just enjoy this in my room and have it delivered and everything I wanted to eat. And I'm like, that would be room service. That exists. And so that's what that is. But it goes to show, though, that last mile delivery, it's not necessarily how we think about it. Is something's being shipped by UPS across the country or having Uber Eats come down. Last mile delivery is very all encompassing. Maybe it's room service. I guarantee sometimes it takes that room service person 45 minutes to get to the room as they transpire the hotel. That's probably more risky in some situations than someone driving 2 blocks from a restaurant to a house. And so when we think about delivery, and we also think about technology and risk, we can't just think about a delivery vehicle. It is going to be drones. It could be the room service gentleman that's coming up from half a block away. But I definitely just want to pause that. And it's also been around for quite some time. And so this is not something that's new. Last mile delivery, it's just very much been an evolution. But anyways, what has not changed? The risk. The risk are the risk, whether it's cross-contamination, food security, temperature management, allergen control, labeling, personal hygiene, sanitation, those are the risk. But what has changed are how we need to apply controls for those risks and how we also need to be able to scale. We can't use the same type of gel packs per se that we want to use for the future. Once again, there's some sustainability implications, there's supply chain constraints, there's packaging considerations and challenges. So the controls and the scalability will have to evolve. One thing was not changed. There's a customer. There is a customer for absolutely everything I have found. But as the customer has not changed, what has changed are customer expectations. They are once again the omni consumer. They wanted it yesterday. They wanted it now. They wanted it last night. But they also want the autonomy to figure out, where do you want to get it? Do I want this delivered to the doorman at the bottom of the hotel? Do I want it left outside my apartment door? Do I want it in a locker down the street? And so consumer expectations really have evolved, and these have evolved so rapidly just based on so many different things. I would say the pandemic, more than anything, has really caused a very prompt evolution of customer shopping habits and customer histories. And at the end of the day, too, something that has not changed is customer trust and safety. They want things to be safe. They don't look at Walmart, they don't go to Wendy's and, gosh, I wonder if the chocolate or strawberry frosty is safer, because both would be amazing. So yeah, plug there. But that customer trust and the confidence they need to have in the products that they purchase, that is something that has not changed. And so for us to be able to meet those expectations, it goes back to leveraging science and technology in order to do so in a expeditious and successful manner. So I think what has not changed? We're still selling things. There are retailers, there are food kitchens, there are the baker down the street. That retail of food and service, it has not changed, and it will always be a business. What has changed? Well, the retail of food and services. This has also evolved. It's how they're being done, what we're selling. We're not selling raw ingredients, we're actually selling meal kits. But that how has really evolved. And it really comes back on this foundation of science, innovation, and technology to make sure that we can meet those changes. I said this a little earlier, but one thing that's so amazing about science, it really gets us to yes. All right, something else kind of thinking about technology and last mile delivery. When I think about going to a restaurant about, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, is who are we engaging with and how? And so before, it was definitely maybe someone behind the counter at the butcher shop or the baker that was preparing those types of products for me. Now that really has evolved. Maybe I won't even interact with the person. I'm going to order a very large meal or proteins or whatever it may be, and I'll never even talk to a person. And so as we think about technology in particular, it's not just applying to the food worker of yesterday, but also the food robot of tomorrow, or the digital kind of footprint for tomorrow. And it's beyond just that physical worker. It's what are we doing for packaging? What are we doing for ingredients? What are we doing for storage? That how may I help you is not just a customer salesperson interaction. It's who's doing the delivery of the packaging. It's who's doing the storing of it, who's doing the staging of it, who's cleaning the delivery vehicle. There's that how may I help you is really a much broader footprint. And so once again, as we think about controls that we're applying in technology, it can't just be for yesterday's food worker. It might need to be for the drone on the campus. It may need to be for someone who's dropping off the gel packs in the back door. But it really is how may I help you? We really need to kind of expand on who we're targeting. And the reason I bring this up is so many of our solutions really evolve around training. It's like, how can we train? How can we train? Well, that will get us so far, but there's so much more that needs to be done. And that's where this technology really plays a big footprint on, is it has to be more than training. If we've got robots dropping off food packaging or dropping off delivery or helping to pick and pack orders for us, definitely training's probably not going to work. Maybe it will, but probably not the same. And so it really kind of has us, who is our end customer? Maybe it is something that's digital. Maybe it is something that's physical for us to help solve. All right. So really thinking about some of the cool stuff that we're doing, I get really excited about this. And so just share a couple of examples from Walmart in particular is, one of the things that we've really done a lot of work on is how can we automate and take some of these decision points out of the various points in hand. So when you think about the customer journey, customer may be online, they place an order for an e-tailer, that goes to a retailer, maybe e-tailer and retailer are one and the same, maybe not. But then that retailer will say, okay, I've got this order from Dawn, send it to a shopper. The shopper is going to go and pick and pack that order, and then it's going to go to a delivery entity, then it's going to go to a customer. The customer has an issue, they go back to the e-tailer, right? It's very rare that if you bought it online, you're going to go to the physical store. Although everyone has very dedicated customers. So I will say there's some dedicated customers out there. But it is a cycle. And so as we're trying to solve for various scenarios and the risk and the situation. We've got to keep about that cycle in mind. So kind of going back to the ordering piece of it is when you're placing an order online, you need to have a digital label. Very, very basic kind of understanding too. But what I'm ordering, you've got to have that digital label inside. And if you want to mix and match whether I want these types of products on, the digital label obviously has the update. You need to be able to have the allergens and the ingredients. That same interface that you would have if you were in a store, if not better. Now, what's really challenging about this is what happens when there's substitutions or there's supply chain constraints? Well, we need to make sure the digital label also reflects that information. Now, what's even more exciting about the digital ecosystem though is we can also give customers a more tailored solution on how to search for things. Well, maybe they want organic, maybe they're vegan, maybe there's a lot of variations of diets out there, so I won't go through the portfolio of them. Some I've never heard of and I don't really want to hear of anymore, but it is fascinating for us to be able to give customers that option. Maybe you have some type of food sensitive or allergen, and that digital label will help tell that story so you can actually customize your shopping experience. Oh, sorry, testing. All right. See, I needed technology closer to my face. All right. The other part about the ordering experience too is the when versus what versus how. And what I mean by that is you think about the risk of the product itself, and then we think about the customer. When do they want it and how do they want it? That's also going to change the assortment that they want. So if I want maybe a hot burrito, they can't order that tomorrow. There has to be something more real time. And so the assortment that the customer is wanting, there also has to be a variation on maybe you can get that today, maybe you can get it now, maybe you can't get it at all. And so that ordering experience really has to use technology based on risk and what the customer is wanting. Another thing that's important about this is I call it delivery radius because it's something that we use is depending on what you want, if you're too far away from a safe place for us to fulfill that from, then maybe it's not available to you or there's alternative means. And so I think that's something that's also very important too, is kind of how we're going to get it to you could also basically be a variation of the assortment. And so there's various pieces of that ordering experience, not only to show you what you're going to get, but maybe what you can get. Now, at the end of the day, if a customer wants something, we need to be able to provide them that the right way, but it just goes back to the when versus the what versus the how. Maybe it's something that we can ship across the country. Maybe it's something that's going to come from a local store down the street. Maybe it's going to come from the Wendy's across the street. But really, it's what you want and using that kind of dynamic technology, the ordering experience, to figure out how we can safely get it to you and when. The other thing too is on the whole shopping experience. We have so many individuals that are doing the order fulfillment. You go online, you want a big grocery order from Walmart, you want something from a fast food restaurant. Someone's got to make that order and package it and bag it. It could be raw proteins. It could be ice cream, because everyone loves ice cream. It could be dog food. It could be cleaning supplies in that. So we could have millions of individuals that are trying to help pick and pack these orders for you. So how do we think about making sure that that's done in a safe way? Going back to the previous slide, the risk is the risk. We know what those are. So what we need to do is have guided shopping experiences and tell them when to bag, what to bag, and which packaging you use. Use images. Then also drive a very efficient shopping pack. If you're in a big box store like Walmart and you're trying to shop for an order, we drive very efficient picking routes to make sure it's very efficient in using where we need to have cold items being picked at one point, when they need to use the appropriate packaging. You've got to be able to have those technology triggers in there to make sure that we take the decisioning process out. The reason I say that technology is so important here is in the past, we would have solved this with training, right? We train them how to shop. We make sure, hey, separate raw and ready to eat, separate chemical and food products. That's great to be able to provide that overview, but when you're being timed and you're trying to go and fill thousands and thousands of orders as fast as you can, sometimes you might not remember all the training you had. And it's also very challenging to do on-the-job training. Once again, time, you've got to go fast, you've got to go fast. And so it's not very conducive sometimes to sit there and watch a tutorial or educational. You need to have technology, here's the next steps. But then always have that training there available if it is needed, but it needs to be technology to help decision that. The other part of this is that digital checks. And so where can we do scans? Where can we check in? Where can we actually say, oh, you just picked something that's a temperature required item, do a temperature check, and keep moving on. And so making sure that we've got digitized checks within the process. Then the other part of this is actually delivering it, getting to the customer. This is where science is so helpful, because I think about something where we've got so much data on, it's weather, right? I love the Weather Channel, especially during hurricane season. I'm so sorry for anyone that's experienced a significant hurricane, but it is a fascinating channel to watch. But there is so much weather data out there. And a lot of the delivery pieces of information that we're doing, it's very dynamic based on temperature. Maybe I can deliver something in northern Minnesota in the middle of winter and have a little bit more time and a little bit less packaging consideration because of the ambient temperature, because of how we're doing it. And maybe if I'm delivering something in South Texas in the middle of summer, we've got to really be a lot more expeditious in that process. And so this is something that has been a really great opportunity to explore, is how can we have dynamic delivery times based on weather, and knowing, okay, if customers want this in the middle of winter, or if customers want this in the middle of summer, how can we use existing data points to make sure that we're providing a really safe experience for those customers. The other part of this too is, once again, packaging. I know there was a great kind of overview of some of the packaging challenges out there. One thing I'll say is that we can automate how to send packaging or what packaging to use, but packaging is always going to be a challenge. And one thing I'll say too is there's so many kind of competing opportunities here where I can't tell you how many customer feedback points I've received on too much packaging, too many bags. We don't want the packaging in the bags. It's like, so you just want it like kind of left out there somewhere. And so it's really a balance for us to make sure that we're still thinking about what the customer wants. But once again, I can't just throw a bunch of bananas on the doorstep and like, see you later kind of thing. We've got to have a balance. And so for us, packaging is always going to be something that we need to make sure the products are being delivered and transported safely, but there's got to be something different. There's got to be something that's the next step. So something that we've been looking at is we call it porch box, because that's a really poor lame word, but that's what it's called, is that maybe we can deliver something to the customer where they actually have like maybe the equivalent of like a refrigerator or ice box on their doorstep that we can actually access with a smart lock technology and deliver those goods into that. So then we don't have the packaging challenges. There's compartments within the porch box that we can actually put something in, and then we don't have that packaging challenge. And you take it from refrigerated location in the beginning or temperature controlled location, transport it within a very quick time, and then you can put it right back into a refrigerator unit. So we can get away from some of those packaging challenges. And so I think a lot of times we think packaging is the solution when we really need to go back to falling in love with what is the problem. It's temperature, it's cross-contamination, and how do we apply solutions to solve the problem, and not just fall in love with a certain solution and try and make it work. And that's something I know when I'm talking to some of our stakeholders internally, it's everyone has such a tendency to fall in love with the solutions, but that doesn't help us. If we keep falling in love with certain solutions, whether it's labeling or packaging, we're not going to be able to meet the needs of tomorrow's customers. And so I always say, we've got to make sure technology is falling in love with the problem and not that solution. But the packaging has always been an ongoing just consideration point. Something else on the delivery piece is we've got to make sure automate. And so if we are saying that we're going to be delivering to you within 10 minutes or less, or an hour or less, we need to make sure the delivery driver is not the one making that decision. And what I mean by that is, how can we use GPS or reroute technology that if the delivery driver leaves point A at this time, they take too long to get there, their GPS or technology automatically reroutes them back. And that way we make sure that the customer is not receiving something outside that delivery window. Not only is it just a good experience, but at the same time, then we're mitigating some of those potential temperature concerns. So that's something else, just thinking about how we can use technology to start taking some of these decision points out of the process and just make it a seamless flow. Something else too that's so key as part of this whole is communication, and making sure whether it's a digital communication, how many of us have actually ordered something online and you've gotten a text message or 47 emails that when it's coming or when it's being delivered? Hopefully everyone has ordered something, gotten like a text or email. Exactly. It's that communication piece of it. You need to know where your order is and when it's being left. And so if I'm ordering, pizza for the kids and I have it left on the doorstep, it's that real-time communication to let you know where it's at in that delivery history and making sure the customer is aware of kind of what to do with it. Hey, I left it on your doorstep. Something else that can also be useful is when that delivery is from a technology perspective that can be useful is when that delivery is actually left at the customer, leave an image of it. Show them, hey, this is where I left it, this is how I left it, and then you can actually text or email and let them know real time, this is what's recommended for next steps to make sure that the product is handled safely. And so that communication will always be key to make sure that the customer and whatever they ordered, they have that visibility throughout the process. Something else also that's so important too is that post-delivery experience too. I know it was mentioned earlier is when there's an issue, where do customers go? Do they have to text with somebody? Do they have to call? Where do they go for that information? And so it's so important that we can make sure that there's automation to how they can be supported as well. No one likes to sit on hold for 4 hours to have their issues handled. So how can we automate that experience and make sure that we're addressing customers' concerns real time? The other thing that's so important post-delivery is in the event there is a terrible safety issue of a recall, we have a kind of a digital footprint or digital history of these customers so we can make them aware, whether it's text messages or emails. Hey, something happened. Unfortunately, there was a recall of this product. We can make sure that digital messaging is going to those customers and using that technology to get as real-time communication to those customers as possible. The other thing just want to call in is how do you do this? These are just a couple call outs. I want to go fast through this is everyone's always talking, we need the bells and whistles for the solution. No, we don't. We don't need the whistles and the bells and the whistles. Sometimes we just need a whistle or a bell. And the reason I bring this up is I think when we're trying to look at the risk and then use technology to solve something, we're trying to think really big picture and solve for everything. Maybe that's not what we need. Maybe just the bell is going to work when we're thinking about technology solutions. And so science is so helpful for us to understand what we can do and how we can control for risk. And maybe all we need is a bell. The other thing too, just I know I'm getting low on time here, I want to call out is this whole automate versus innovate. Everyone's looking, well, we need technology. It's like, do you even know what that means? I don't know what that means, but do you know what that means? But sometimes it's not so much as some fancy technology solution. Maybe it's just changing a step in the process. Maybe instead of putting these products here, we put it here. And so I think that's something that we always have to think about. Maybe it's not the big picture solution. Maybe it's just a change in the step. Something else to call here is paper versus power. If I have one more person on my team, it's like, we need a paper log. It's like, what are we going to do with this paper log? And so I think it's so important for us to also think about, we're not going to track cooking temperatures the same way. We're not going to check delivery temperatures the same way. I'll tell you right now, the last time I looked at a delivery temperature log, it had a lot of foreign substances on it, dirt maybe, I don't know, but it's automating those types of checks too. So paper versus power. We need to really move away from having actually anything that's documented, that written version, but really how can we power and digitize that? The other thing to call here is micro versus macro versus micro. This goes a little bit back to the whistles and the bells conversation. Sometimes we get so lost in trying to solve for the macro problems that we don't go for the micro wins. When I think about a drone delivery, it's still a very small scale in certain situations. I don't need to think about a macro solution or a macro solve. I need to think about the micro. And so I think this is something that versus the macro technology solution versus the macro. It might take 2 years to be able to solve with technology all the risks that we have out there. But if we can focus on the micro at the moment, put in a technology solution, whether it's automated reroute technology if we exceed a certain time, or using a prompt to tell someone when to package or what kind of package to use, versus the macro solution of we're just going to have a robot that goes out and does everything for us. And so keep that in mind, is we might not be able to solve the big picture, but if we can solve something small with the big picture in mind, then we're still on the right journey. And then I just want to throw out some cool pictures, but these are just a couple of different things that we are testing is autonomous delivery vehicles, drone solutions. What I will say it's fascinating too with some of the autonomous delivery types of technology out there. It's very interesting to figure out how customers will engage. They're used to having things left on the doorstep. I'll tell you right now, an autonomous truck cannot leave something on your doorstep without lots of damage. And so it's a very interesting place for us now where that communication piece, that technology driven communication with the customer is so key for us. And then it's also just going to be a myriad of solutions too. I'll tell you right now, some drones can deliver cartons of eggs, others cannot. And so it's important to understand like what's the solution that's going to work for what the customer wants and then continue that on as well. I think that's it. Thank you.